From the Epoch Times, an article by Brian Cates, November 27th, 2020. Joe Biden must not become president. As I discussed in an earlier column, based on the publicly available evidence, the Biden family was possibly a national security threat while Joe Biden was the vice president of the United States. And we haven't even seen all of the evidence that was on Hunter Biden's allegedly abandoned laptop yet. Should the Biden family be put into the White House, all of the very same issues that made them a national security threat previously would not only resurface, the threat would also be enhanced due to Biden holding a much more powerful and consequential office. Even without factoring in the shady business dealings the Biden family was doing in nations such as China, Iraq, and Ukraine, there are still major security issues. There's no delicate way to put this. Hunter Biden is a blackmail threat. Given what was already disclosed from the laptop, there's almost no doubt the younger Biden would be a prime target of foreign intelligence services, and that's assuming he hasn't been compromised already. The Biden's history of cronyism was always an open secret. The Biden family cronyism was always one of the biggest open secrets in Washington. Everybody knew about it. It was discussed, and stories were published on the issue in the mainstream media. But then, nothing was ever done about any of it. Multiple news stories were written, and troubling questions were briefly asked back in 2012 after Jim Biden was handed a $1.5 billion construction contract when Joe was the Obama administration's point man in Iraq. This happened despite the fact that Jim Biden had no previous experience in the construction industry. Then, Hunter Biden, in April 2014, was apparently gifted with an extremely lucrative corporate board position with the Ukrainian energy firm named Burisma. This happened shortly after his father was tapped to be the Obama White House's top man handling Ukraine. At the time, several news stories were published that tentatively pointed out that the younger Biden had absolutely no experience in the energy industry. So, despite Jim Biden having no construction experience and Hunter Biden having no energy industry experience, lucrative business deals and board positions were being publicly given to them. It was not hard to see why. It had a lot more to do with their last name than any skills or work history they had. This looked bad at the time, and so questions were raised, but Joe Biden had a standard tactic that had served him well for years whenever some pesky reporter dared to ask him about these blatant conflicts of interest. The vice president would loudly deny these conflicts of interest existed at all and would declare that he had never discussed these foreign business deals or jobs with his family members. Biden would just claim he had nothing to do with any of this, it was never talked about within the family, and so the issue would die down again, at least for a while. This defense was always absurd, and it's even more so now, given what the laptop and whistleblowers such as Tony Bobulinski have revealed. Despite these recent developments, Biden has stubbornly refused to come up with any new answers to these important questions. He issues increasingly angry denials and then quickly moves on. Joe Biden, enthusiastic Chinese Communist Party regime cheerleader. The more that comes to light, the more it becomes increasingly likely that Joe Biden is unduly influenced by the regime in Beijing. He has always been one of the most enthusiastic Chinese Communist Party, hereinafter CCP, cheerleaders among the political elite establishment. Ever since former President Richard Nixon's historic visit to China in 1972, which also happens to be when Biden first entered the US Senate, visions of tapping into the vast Chinese markets have danced in the heads of America's power brokers in Washington and Wall Street. The recent pandemic, the crushing of Hong Kong's democracy protests, the treatment of the Uyghur people, and the cowardice of the National Basketball Association are the stark reality of where the greed of some has led. American politicians and corporations have been bending the knee to actual tyrants for some time now. This execrable behavior just didn't get a lot of attention until this year. Not until Donald J. Trump won the 2016 presidential election was there any serious pushback against China's subversive activities in the United States and elsewhere. Decades were spent offshoring key American industries to foreign nations such as China. Now, as a matter of vital national security following the CCP virus pandemic, President Trump has begun a much needed decoupling from China, bringing those industries back to the United States. This explicit Trump policy is something many political elites in the United States Congress, in Washington think tanks, and in Wall Street lobbying firms are desperate to stop. These people spent the past several decades being quite lucratively rewarded for overseeing the dismantling of American industry and shipping it to places like China. Biden has already made it clear that if he assumes power in the White House, he fully intends to reverse all of Trump's foreign policy on Iran, on Russia, and likely on China. Just for this reason alone, I believe it's imperative that Trump prevail in his legal challenges and that Joe Biden never becomes president. Biden promises full reversal of all key Trump policies. Biden has not been shy about boasting what he will do if he enters the White House. He will begin a complete reversal of just about every key Trump policy of the past 4 years. The implications of that are staggering. As one example, it's hard to see how any of the new peace deals between Israel and its Arab neighbors will survive a Biden term. Biden fully intends to embrace Iran again while reinstituting the Iran deal. Biden has also boasted he will completely reverse Trump's immigration policies, stop construction of the border wall, and open the borders again. On the economy, Biden's advisor is talking about a national lockdown lasting from 4 to 6 weeks. That would take the recovering economy and tank it, perhaps to the point it would never recover. Of course, Biden would have no constitutional authority to order a national lockdown, just as he'd have no authority to institute a national mask mandate, as he often talks about. But we all know at this point the blue state governors and the Democrat big city mayors would do what they were told. Therefore, it's absolutely imperative that Biden never enter the Oval Office. The next several weeks leading up to December 14th, the date the Electoral College is scheduled to vote, are going to be crucial in determining the fate of this republic and much of the rest of the world. Brian Cates is a writer based in South Texas and the author of Nobody Asked for My Opinion, but here it is anyway. He can be reached on Parler at Draw and Strike.